In today's news, Royal Virgin Islands Police Force sees 9 local recruits. Presently, 24% of the force are Virgin Islanders. The aim is not to have an all-local force, but for the force to represent the BVI's diverse society.
We also see the Commission of Inquiry moving to the second stage. At this point, over 100 request letters were sent out for information from public officials.
Police Commissioner says, where is their income coming from? We need to get to a stage where we can hold people to account, where they can't explain their assets. We're going to get into that and so much more after a word from our sponsors.
The win of
What in the hell?
I'm freaking out.
Is about these people.
It's always a pleasure coming to you live and direct from the
What's poppin'? What's really good?
Davis has won it for the Lakers.
Welcome, everybody. It's Monday, March 22nd, a beautiful day to each and every one of you. I'm Ron Grant.
And my name is Javon Wilson. So thrilled once again to be joining you for another edition of 284 News, where, of course, we keep you informed on the local, regional, as well as international content. Now, just today, a press release from the Commission of Inquiry's office stating that it has now moved into the second stage of the inquiry, and up to press time would have sent out at least 100 request letters to public officials. And we do know that the commissioner himself has the ability to summons public officials to come forward with pertinent information. We also see a peace billboard being erected just yesterday, March 21st. The board was launched promoting peace as the territory sees a rise in nefarious crimes. The board says, and I quote, "Stop, think before you act." And of course, this was a joint collaboration between the Rotary family of the BVI, the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, the government of the Virgin Islands, and young activist Jaleel Cameron, who actually said that these killings are adversely affecting young children. We do know that the BVI has recorded just about 8 deaths in just 6 months, resulting in a territory-wide call for persons to put down the guns. Now, as we pan across to Brazil, supplies are really low in Brazilian hospitals. One coastal town says that it may be forced to take COVID-19 patients off of the ventilators due to shortages in the medicines that is being used for the intubation. Now, we've seen this, Ron. We've seen the vaccine nationalism. We have seen rich countries hoarding supplies, and of course, poor countries suffering as a result of that. We're grateful for agencies like COVAX, which of course we stand to inherit from as well, who is really ensuring equitable distribution. But even with all of that, we do see countries continuing to suffer. And in the United States, we see a state of emergency being instated. Terrible situation in Miami. It's spring break, and the kids are
going crazy.
Absolutely. The police are out with their pepper bullets. So lots to get into as we dive into today's newscast.
Jovan, that billboard, it could not have come at a more timely essence, as we are significantly suffering in the BVI as it pertains to violence. I want persons to pay attention to that. These are our brothers, our kings that are losing their lives, and I think we need to get to the point where we take it seriously.
Yes.
Now, beginning on the local scene here in the British Virgin Islands. At a recently held joint press conference led by Leader of Government Business, the Honorable Andrew A. Foy, alongside Police Commissioner Michael Matthews and Governor John J. Ranking, it was disclosed by Police Chief Michael Matthews that the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force will see 9 new recruits, born and bred Virgin Islanders, joining the police force. In response to a question posed by the media, Commissioner Matthews had this to say. Take a look.
To the public service, I suspect the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force and our colleagues in Customs and Immigration have probably been better off during the decline in the economy. And that's because there was a recognition that we had to secure our borders, we had to keep the people safe. And that's been recognised. That's been recognised by government, and that was recognised by the Governor at the time, Governor Jasper, on that occasion, in terms of not only accessing funds from the UK, but also increasing capability using government funding. Yes, in the ideal world, we would have more police officers available to put on the streets, but we have been allowed to recruit again this year. even at a time when the economy is shrinking. We're hoping to bring in 12 new recruits this year, and I can tell the good people here today that the good news on that front is, as it sits on paper, we're doing their background checks at the moment, as it sits on paper, 9 of those 12 are BV Islanders, bred and born. So, it's a good news story, but it's happening at a time when, the budgets are tight, and I have to be realistic about that. And of course, the Premier and the Governor have to hold me to account to make sure that I'm making the best use of what I'm given in the first place. So, yes, I will make business cases, and I will, in fact, funnily enough, I'm sure neither of these gentlemen want to hear this, but I've been typing away this morning on another business case. Of course I'm going to do that, but I have to balance that with the needs of the rest of the territory across the whole of the public sector and businesses and so forth. But I'll finish by saying this, and I know I'm not teaching anybody anything new here, but if you haven't got security in the territory, you haven't got anything.
That was Police Commissioner Michael Matthews. Now, in an invited comment by our agency, Commissioner Matthews further stated, and I quote, "We have always had born and bred BV Islanders working within the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force. We have about 24% at the moment. That is roughly the makeup. And of course, I am a big fan of localism because I think you have a vested interest in protecting your own country and your own territory and your own home. But I also have to be realistic and recognize that the BVI is a very diverse place to live and is made up of numerous populations. Policing is supposed to reflect the community that it serves, so I could never sign up for a 100% BVI Islander force. It's about finding that balance, but certainly over the last 2 years or so, we have been recruiting. We have been actively trying to target BV Islanders in particular and local people simply because we want to address the balance better than it has been in the past. And the good news is that we are seeing and we have seen born and bred BV Islanders moving through the ranks into the force in some of the more senior positions. And that's because they have a vested interest in the territory. Now, Premier of the Virgin Islands, the Honorable Andrew Foy, in an invited comment, said, and I quote, "Well, I thank God that this is happening. It is very important because as we build this country to be what I consider one of the greatest nations to be built in the years to come, we have to build it on our people. Where we are lacking in expertise in certain areas, we welcome to have persons to come in, but we also have to use that expertise when it comes to training our people, and we also have to use our education system to build on any area where we are lacking. But at the end of the day, we have to build it with our people. And when I say that, I mean persons who have come here and made it their home. This government has made it clear that we are regularizing persons who have decided to make here their home, and we will continue to do so. Because if persons put in the years here and have helped build the Virgin Islands, they are part of the Virgin Islands. They are people of the Virgin Islands, along with those who have been born here. So when I say our people, these are also included in it, and it is good news. We have to make sure that the funding is available for the recruitment of officers, both in Her Majesty's Customs and Immigration and in the police area. We have spent millions of dollars in law enforcement, and we continue to do so. Jovan, we have to admit that the job of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force is no easy task. And to put that into perspective, being a police and policing in your own country could be even more so difficult. So we have to applaud these 9 recruits and are happy to see that the local aspect of the force is continuing to build.
I think inclusivity is key, and one of the things we've been pushing for, especially in recent times, is the need for a local commissioner. And I think this is how it begins. You're able to recruit, not only recruit, but also aptly train persons so that they can perform within this capacity. And I think if the commissioner and really the United Kingdom who oversees security in the BVI, if they're really serious about that, then that's the position we should be taking going forward.
And Jovan, I'm glad you raised the point of a local police commissioner, because I think in some instances residents are who are not aware of the opinion that that is not at all possible. We have had a local police commissioner in that of Mr. Reynold Fraser, who served for a number of years. So it's not something I think that is out of boundaries, but it's also not something that we should just automatically want to do because it is a local person. Of course, that person has to be competent. So when we look at it, I think it's important for them to look at both sides of the coin.
It's about striving for balance.
Indeed.
I love it. Now, as we move on, the Commission of Inquiry launched earlier this year to look into whether corruption, abuse of office, or other serious dishonesty may have taken place amongst the public elected and statutory officials in recent years. has now gone into the second stage of the inquiry. Now, a press release coming out of the Commissioner of Inquiry's office today stated, and I quote, "The COI is currently engaged in the second stage of the inquiry, namely obtaining further information and documentation in response to the information already provided by members of the public. The COI has to date sent over 100 letters of request for information or documents to public officials, including elected and statutory officials," end of quote. Now, viewers, the statement further said, and I quote once again, members of the COI team intend to return to the British Virgin Islands next week to continue with the information gathering stage of the COI. The commissioner will be accompanied by Mr. Stephen Chandler, who of course is the secretary to the COI, and Mr. Andrew King, who is the senior solicitor to the COI. All three will of course observe the current 14 days quarantine requirement upon arrival. Now, the commission is currently considering holding preliminary hearings in the BVI in late April and early May prior to the main oral hearings. The commissioner will publish the rules to regulate the conduct and management of the COI's hearings shortly, end of quote. Now, viewers, the commissioner continues to encourage anyone who believes that they may have information to assist the inquiry who has not yet submitted to the COI, encouraging them to submit that information directly to the COI as soon as possible via the secure website, which of course is bvi.public-inquiry.uk, as well as the website portal. The COI has provided a number of different and secure ways for individuals to share information with the inquiry team, including a dedicated email, and that email address is bvi.public-inquiry.uk. Again, that is contact.coi@bvi.public-uk. I'm sorry, I'm messing up. It's contact.coi@bvi.public-inquiry.uk. And of course, there's a WhatsApp number. It's 447832111254. So there's various ways, of course, effective and confidential ways of reaching out to the office of the COI. Now, the office says that all information will be received and held in strict confidence. Now, Ron, the Commissioner of Inquiry is also reminding persons in the BVI that the IRU is not a part of the COI.
Very important.
Yes, and he said, and I quote, that the BVI Government Inquiry Response Unit, which is the IRU, which has been set up to facilitate responses to requests for information made to the public servants by the COI, is wholly separate from the COI. He further said, and I quote, "The COI is and will remain entirely independent of the BVI government. Members of the public cannot engage with the COI through the IRU. If they wish to engage with the COI, they should contact the COI directly." Now, if they wish, public servants too may of course make direct contact with the COI if they have relevant information. And again, if anyone wishes to meet or speak with the commissioner on his return to the islands, they should contact the secretary, who will be able to arrange a face-to-face, remote meeting, or of course you can send in that information directly via WhatsApp. I think finally, Ron, we are seeing some headway as it relates to the Commissioner of Inquiry. I think over 100 requests to public officials, and this does include elected officials as well. I think it speaks volumes. I know one of the concerns was the team from the COI intermittently being between the BVI and the United Kingdom.
Correct.
But here we see them sticking to the order and returning soon. So hopefully we can see some solid evidence coming out from this investigation.
Well, definitely they have been working behind the scenes, and we can see that with their progress, and we continue to wish them and, of course, our territory the very best as we continue to traverse through the COI. Viewers, still ahead, Commissioner Michael Matthews, as we continue to focus in and really crack down on the very troubling drug problem. He says, where is their income coming from? We need to get to a stage where we can hold people to account, where they can't explain their assets, and Brazil is struggling to get supplies for patients on ventilators. All this and so much more after a word from our sponsors. You're watching 284 News. Viewers, welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. You're watching 284 News out of Tortola in the beautiful British Virgin Islands. Continuing on the local scene, during the recently held joint press conference addressing the recent violence in the territory of the Virgin Islands, Commissioner of Police Michael Matthews stated that in order to combat crime and the drug trade plaguing the BVI, we have to change our mindset. Take a look.
We happen to live in a region where the drugs trade has been allowed to thrive in different areas. What I'm saying is that the mindset that needs to change is in particular with our young people, and particularly it's not just young men, it can be young women as well. They're getting caught up in this. They see this as an attractive, quick fix to get rich. And I suppose the obvious thing I would ask us all is when you look around and you notice that somebody's got 3 or 4 homes and 2 or 3 fast boats and a couple of nice cars, but they haven't got a job, you have to ask yourself a question. Where's their income coming from? And that's why modernising legislation is going to be so important going forward to the BVI, because we need to get to a stage where we can hold people to account when they can't explain their assets, especially when we're living in today's age where we know categorically that the illicit drugs trade, mainly cocaine, is connected with murders, death and violence on our street.
That was Police Chief Michael Matthews bringing awareness to some very important matters that we as a society continuously turn a blind eye to. Premier Foy also encouraging residents to hold each other accountable, saying, and I quote, "If someone that you love, a friend, a family member, someone in your household is going on the wrong path, talk to them. Urge them to stop and to think. Remind them that there are children and loved ones who love them and who need them. We cannot live selfishly. That is not the trait of us as Virgin Islanders. We must continue to support the police and other law enforcement agencies by doing our civic duty."
You know, Ron, recently at church, and I mean, persons might take this the wrong way, but you know,
I'm interested to hear this conversation.
Pastor John Klein was speaking to the fact that the answers we seek are always within. And I feel like any problem we have to face and really confront begins with us asking those hard questions. Where is the money coming from? That isn't to say that persons aren't, you know, building their wealth legitimately.
Working hard, yeah.
Of course, and you cannot take that away from hardworking individuals. But in order for us to really deal with this issue on a serious level, we really have to continue to ask these questions. So I'm happy to see the commissioner coming forward with this. And we've seen the blame game, Ron. We're blaming the police. At one point, we're blaming the government. We're politicizing crime. But we cannot deny that it's alive and well in our community.
Indeed.
Viewers, as we move on, in Brazil, coronavirus cases are surging in Brazil, and the country's health systems are increasingly overwhelmed. Now, in nearly every state across Brazil, occupancy rates in intensive care units, ICUs, of course, are at or above 80%. Some of them are at or above 90%, and a few have exceeded 100% occupancy, forcing them to turn some patients away. Now, state governors, city mayors, and local medical personnel now say that they are running out of supplies to even treat COVID-19 patients who have been allocated precious ICU beds. Now, stocks of medicines that facilitate intubation could vanish in the next 2 weeks, according to a report from the National Council of Municipal Health Secretaries. And Brazil's National Associations of Private Hospitals has predicted that private hospitals will run out of medicines necessary for intubating COVID-19 patients by this Monday coming. Now, in the coastal town of São Paulo state, the mayor over there, who is, of course, Mayor Felipe Augusto, this weekend resorted to public appeals for more supplies from the state government. He said, and I quote, "Our stock lasts until Monday and will only be used for patients already intubated. The problem is that the lack of these drugs demand extubation. That is, you will have to remove this patient who is in a serious and intubated condition and switch to breathing masks, and that is a huge risk," said the mayor. Now, Dr. Juan Lambert, the head of the biggest hospital in Brazil, also said that COVID-19 patients are intubated in his hospital and that the state of government had bought them some time by sending a week's worth of supplies after Augusto's plea circulated in the media. He said, and I quote, Thank God the Secretariat reached out and made us a priority in the distribution supplies. But with the entire country now stretching to accommodate skyrocketing new cases, even the wealthiest state in Brazil may not have much more to offer. On Saturday, São Paulo's State Health Department predicted that public hospitals' stocks of drugs used for intubation would only last another week. Now, the department said, and I quote, express and urgent measures from Brazil's health ministry means that we now are running out of supplies. Ron, a very dire situation in Brazil. We continue to speak about not only, like we said, the vaccine nationalism, but supplies. And we look across the world and we see larger nations, even the BVI. At one point, our supplies, our N95 equipment and supplies were held up by the United States, and we had to have that summons released by the United Kingdom. But it just goes to show that the entire world is competing for the very same supplies. And in some countries, while in the BVI we're blessed to have our numbers down, there are places that are really suffering.
Jovan, we have continued to see this in times of peril, such as a pandemic. It is literally a fight for survival, and unfortunately in this case, we see it being present once again.
Absolutely. Now, still ahead, the state of education here in the BVI. Now, 1 year later, no definite timeline for the full reopening of schools in the BVI. We also see infrastructure being a major delay. Elmerstadt High School still has no furniture, and students are actually using picnic tables. All that and so much more when we return to 284 News.
Is business slow? Cash flow down? Hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media@cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works. Viewers, welcome back. Continuing on the local scene, in a recent interview, Deputy Premier and Minister for Education, Dr. the Honorable Natalio D. Wheatley, revealed his plans to propose a change in legislation to the Cabinet of the Virgin Islands to allow, he said, for 3 feet distancing instead of 6 feet, with hopes of maybe reopening schools to full class sessions in the Trinity term. Now, this announcement comes on the heels of the 1-year anniversary, believe it or not, of the initial closure of schools in the Virgin Islands as a result, of course, of the coronavirus pandemic. Though this is his desire, he stated that there is no surety that this will be approved by Cabinet, saying, and I quote, "What we want to do is to go to Cabinet and reduce the distancing in the classroom from 6 feet to 3 feet. The World Health Organization states that it could be between 3 to 6 feet in the classrooms, so we would still be within WHO's rules and regulations. Now, the 3 feet will allow most students," he said, "to be able to return to the classroom. I can't preempt Cabinet," he continued, "but I am hopeful that the Cabinet paper will be ready to go to Cabinet by next week, and it is my hope that Cabinet would decide to have the distancing reduced for the Trinity term." Now, additionally, the minister noted that there is a huge challenge as it pertains to the infrastructure, particularly at the Elmerstadt High School, junior high school that is, where students and teachers do not have access to furniture, forcing school officials to use picnic tables. Now, this is not only uncomfortable, but does not allow for the social distancing practices in the present pandemic. Minister Wheatley said, and I quote, "There might be some persons out there in the community who may not understand what is happening with furniture. The government of the Virgin Islands procured through the Caribbean Development Bank furniture even before I was elected that has been on the table. Really, the Caribbean Development Bank, they have been a great help to us, but they have a very stringent requirement, and they have a very long process. We are moving forward with a supplier of furniture, and I hope that we will have our furniture soon. But in the meantime, we have had to procure furniture in the interim." Jovan, as the minister said, this has been ongoing for about a little over 3 years now, since the completion of the L-shaped building, which happened just after the most recent general election. And he did admit also that it's been a very weary and long process, and we do hope that in the final analysis, something could be done swiftly to get students the proper furniture, which would in turn allow them to be able to have the proper social distancing protocols to get them back into full day sessions. Apart from the fact that we are looking at opening our seaports, this is actually the main issue one of the main issues that would prevent them
Right.
from actually being able to function properly.
Well, we have been progressing as we see recently in the news. The cruise ships will be able to return. We are opening up somewhat. So the main concern now is how do we get our children back into the schools? And when this question was posed initially to the minister, he did mention indeed that the procurement process through the CDB bank, it's a lengthy
Indeed.
one, and how if they were as a government to reorder furnitures, it would be a waste of money. However, our kids are in a dire situation.
And they're suffering at the end of the
and
day.
it's not improving, Ron.
Correct.
Even when you do an analysis of the teachers, the parents, the students, it is very clear that a lot of our students are being left behind. So I think something has to be done about this. I don't know if it requires checking in, consulting back with the CDB bank. Something has to be done because our kids cannot continue to be sacrificed.
Well, Jovan, you're absolutely right. They're not only suffering, but when we look and put things into perspective, an entire year since students have been back and forth, and I know it's been new, the whole virtual learning, but we see where a lot of students have been missing out and not getting that full opportunity for learning.
And it's unfair.
It is unfair. And we cannot perhaps as a territory and as a government solely rely on that simple procurement process. He also mentioned about the tender process locally being needing to be revised so that matters like this don't have to take such a lengthy time, but something definitely needs to be looked at.
I'm glad he went into explaining at least the process. And Ron, you said over the last year, but really we are dating back to 2017 if
Correct.
we were to think about the
Yes.
shift system. So it's been a long haul. Our students need to be in an environment that is conducive for study. Now, as we pan across to the international scene, we see in the United States, Miami Beach police firing pepper balls into crowds of partiers and, of course, arresting at least a dozen people last Saturday night as the city took extraordinary measures to crack down on the spring breakers who officials said are out of control. Now, the aggressive enforcement actions came just hours after Miami Beach Mayor Dan Gilbert declared a state of emergency and set an 8 p.m. curfew, saying that the crowds have descended on the city recently. They are more than we can handle. Ron, my goodness, in certain parts of the world, it's really a struggle. I know in America, persons are really accustomed to spring break. It's
Yes,
something that
it's a big deal
students
for them.
look forward to, especially in South Beach. But in light of what's going on with this pandemic, it is crazy to see that persons, even if you are out and about, not adhering to the social distancing protocols, not wearing a mask, and completely not complying with the rules.
Well, Jovan, we see this actually all across the world, not only in the U.S., but even locally. You have persons who are just ignorant to the fact that, oh, we don't have any cases presently, so there is no need for me to wear a mask, and they will walk into an establishment not observing the protocols. But what we see, moreover, and it reminds me of the comment made by our police commissioner, when it comes to a global conversation, we have to have a conversation with our millennials and our young people as it
Yes.
pertains to the taking of health seriously. Now, we're not the only ones who try to break the rules, but we're seeing more and more in cases like this, the younger generation, the millennials, are the ones posing most of the problems. So I think that's where the conversation has to be on a global level.
Absolutely. And to add to that, the young people are the ones who are asymptomatic and more prone to be spreading the virus, even if they did contract it. Viewers, that is all the time we have for today, but we want to thank you so much for sticking with us throughout the newscast and invite you to check us out via 284media.com. My name is Javon Wilson.
And I'm Ron Grant. We'll see you again tomorrow as we deliver your daily dose of local, regional, and of course, international content. We're 284 News, your source for honest and impartial news right here on 284 Media. Happy Monday, everybody. Have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.